Changes around us every day. So, how do you manage the changes that happen in mining year round? Welcome to another episode of Change Itself, hosted by Gus Miner and Eric Demers. This show is brought to you by Sofvie and Technica Mining and is produced by Crownsmen Partners. Now, here are your hosts, Gus and Eric.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are again with Change Itself with an exciting episode today. We've got a special guest, Eric Demers, and I, with James Jefferson. We'll be discussing a lot of great things about, transforming the workplace support system, more specifically, post-incident and when things occur in the workplace. Eric, welcome back. Here we are with another show.
Right on. Excited to be back. Feels like it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. And maybe before it's been so long that maybe I forget the housekeeping rules, right? So, for people that are following along, you've obviously found us, but you can tell people to reach us on LinkedIn with Change Itself or changeitself.com, where you'll have access to the YouTube channel and as well as all of our links below in the description. So don't be shy to ring the bell, hit the like button, comment. We're looking forward to your feedback. And as I say that, welcome to Change Itself, James.
Thank you. I'm very, very thrilled to be here.
Right on. Yeah, I think we're gonna have some great conversations, especially with your background and things that you've put in place. I mean, some of the things that we're always exposed to in the workplace is, sometimes it doesn't always occur the way that we planned it to occur. And unfortunately, we do have incidences and accidents that occur in the workplace, and we've seen it. Whether it's the mining industry, construction. And with yourself, with public service, I think it'd be really fun to explore the conversation about what do we do past that? Other than putting things in place to try to prevent it from happening, how do we bring our workforce back? What are the tools that we can lean on to make sure that people feel safe at work again? And just that whole reintroduction into the programs for people to thrive post incident.
James, maybe before we get too far into the conversation, Gus mentioned that we know your background a little bit. You mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, just so our audience gets to know you a little bit and a little bit of the context behind the conversation we're going to have today?
Absolutely. For me, I'm a 14-year police officer veteran. A lot of experience with mental health, both personally and professionally. I was involved in a critical incident very early on in my career. It was a fatal shooting, and I was left with PTSD. Tried to get through it, suppressed it. Obviously, suppression works until it doesn't, and that led me to being off work for 3.5 years, battling, mental health at its core. And I can tell you it is the most difficult journey you can even embark upon. Losing control of your own mind and thoughts is a very scary and humbling process. But I was able to heal. It was a very conscious effort on my part. It took about a year. But in my healing, I was able to develop a job at my work at Greater Sudbury Police as a support role to help our members in a peer support capacity, in a referral capacity, and a lot of different variables that I bring forward. And really, I am so passionate about mental health and self-care and just people living their best lives. And in this day and age, we need so much more of that.
No, thanks for that. And so Gus was just saying that, it's really important to get to talk about, and we're happy and lucky to get to talk about and understand maybe what happens in a critical activity and the victims involved. And when I think of that and what you just shared, what comes to mind is really this presence that we talk about a fatal shooting, whether it's the person that was, fatally wounded or the people involved in the situation. The victim, we tend to just think about the one person, but there's a whole, big background of people involved in incidents, whether it's a critical incident like a fatality in a police shooting, or if it's an incident, on a mine site and underground. It's not just the necessarily the person involved. There's a whole people, witnesses, people that responded to the scene, the first responders and the families, and et cetera. So, thanks for sharing that. And is there a little bit, some things that you've learned that maybe we don't necessarily get to see?
Well, I've learned quite a bit in this process, in this role. And I've learned just how conscious you have to be in taking care of yourself, that it is an everyday 24/7 effort, but it is understanding, the peaks and valleys of that journey. That, people seem to think progress in life is that linear process of A to B, when the reality is there's peaks and valleys to it. And there are days that, you want to run for the hills and hide under the covers and never get out of bed. But that is the process. It's being innately in tune with yourself and how you're thinking and feeling. And it hurts. Like, people need to realize that living your best life, like, you got to break yourself a little bit from time to time to get through those challenges.
And when you say break yourself, like take a break or like push yourself beyond limits that you're comfortable with?
It's that vulnerable, raw transparency with yourself. When you're going through something, we are a surviving species where we want to take the easiest road. Like, it's almost innate for us to do that. And in a big way, we lie to ourselves. We create these narratives in our mind of what we're going through, and we try to validate it and push it off and just believe it'll change with the passing season. But being, intimate with yourself and knowing how you tick in and out, that is a painstaking process. But that is the process of really understanding mental health and how to take care of yourself.
Right on. And then, and then what, every time we talk about your story, and even when I touch base with other people that have had, significant incidents at work, I mean, the immediate knee jerk from an employer or from a workplace is take some time off, right? Take some time off and recover, simple, right? And they, some establishments will have an EAP program, some of them not. But what were your key findings as far as like that solution of just take time off? It goes beyond that, doesn't it?
It's a rubber crutch, right? You lean on it too hard, you're gonna fall. Time off is, people don't understand how challenging that is. When you go through a critical incident and you have those, mental health challenges right at the forefront of your mind, and now you're off work, so you don't have any distraction. You have home responsibilities now that seem like mountains to climb, and you have nothing but time. And when you have nothing but time, I refer to that silence and stillness. Your mind wakes up, and that silence can create mania in your mind, and that stillness is, it's louder than anything you can possibly imagine. Your mind just fires on 1,000 cylinders at once. And people going off, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have, a system of habits and rituals, then all you're doing is just sitting in limbo. And then when you're ready to go back, you come back, but you're the same person that you were going off. So it's really not the best process. There has to be something in place when a worker goes off, that this is the system, this is the structure, and it's, responsibilities in place, but not that it would cause stress on that person. But there has to be, systems in place that just create some normality in life. Because if you're used to working 40 hours a week and you add in overtime and all of that sort of thing, if you got 24 hours in a day and nothing to do, very, very scary thing to be in.
So from what you've experienced and learned, is there maybe a set of steps that people should consider or look at? Is it an individual type of journey? Where do we start after a critical incident occurs?
Well, there's a multitude of things. You could look at, prior to going off, you could look at debriefings or diffusings. Even just, peer support or someone with that lived experience reaching out and just having that conversation, and then navigating the waters after that. Because there's no one set approach. Things that work for me in my healing won't necessarily work for the other person.
Okay.
But it ends up being, a trial and error approach where you got to try everything, because we don't know what works for us in a lot of ways. We think we do, but there's so much out there that can surprise us. And that's what you have to be open-minded to. I'm just going to throw everything at myself and see what works, because I can check the box off if something doesn't. And then that's when I can formulate my toolbox. Because I ask a lot of people, if life hits you in the face, which at some point it will, what do you have at your disposal? What are you going to utilize that'll bring you out of this funk, or put you back in alignment? And most people don't know.
Every worker deserves to go home safely at the end of the day. Book a demo with Sofvie to discover how their groundbreaking EHS management software empowers workers to proactively avoid hazards and how organizations like yours can cultivate a stronger work culture. Visit them at sofvie.com to learn more. Technica Mining is a premier underground mining and construction contractor. They stand for delivering quality project work on time and on budget through innovative thinking. Their excellent safety record, experienced workforce, and large equipment fleet will guarantee the timely completion of all your project needs. Trusted by the world's leading mining companies, Technica Mining has over 20 years of experience in mine construction, development, and production. Contact Technica Mining to take your next mining project to the next level. Visit them at technicamining.com. Change Itself is produced by Crownsmen, the voice of industry. Check out more, including The Crownsman Show, Mining Now, The Building Energy Show, and Agriculture Now at crownsman.com.
Where did you start, if you don't mind sharing? Like, is it therapy? Is it seeing a therapist? Was it something to do with the workplace and they said, there's an assistance program, or did you have to find that yourself? Like, what was your lived experience, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, not at all. It was so it was a real eye opener because after my shooting, I was with a psychologist, and I was with the psychologist for a number of years, but I never got healthier. I would feel a little lighter leaving the session, but the very next day I was the exact same person. And it took some, conscious thought to realize that I wasn't being pushed in my therapy. And that was a big eye opener. We can get into that therapy bubble or that vortex and just be in it for years and years and years if we don't have the right therapist, um, because it gets comfortable. And people going through trauma or mental health challenges, we like comfort because it makes us feel safe. But if you don't have someone directing you, and that was the first step, I had to find a therapist that actually had that skill set to direct me in what I needed. And at that time, I needed exposure therapy. There's a lot of different therapy modalities, and I tried a few of them. Not a lot of them worked for me, but the exposure process did. Hurt like hell, but it worked. And then it was, I had a lot of moral guilt in what I experienced in taking a life. And then I sought out a chaplain, and I'm not religious by nature, but I sat down with this chaplain and we talked, we cried. And one thing that always jumps out at me is when she prayed for me, and she prayed for not my forgiveness from God, but my ability to forgive myself. And I went into this meeting thinking it's not going to do anything. And here I am roughly 6 years later, and I still talk about this one off conversation. And then it's the other habits and rituals that you develop every day. If I followed you around all day, would your habits and rituals tell me what the outcome you're seeking is? And that boils down to, fitness, nutrition, finding out who's your inner circle, who do you have as an outlet to talk to that's constructive, not, we have some negative people in our lives, and some people will validate what you're going through. They will throw fuel on that fire. You need people to uplift you and get you out of that streamlined thinking and get you to think outside the box. Um, and then it was really understanding just how to talk to myself, in a big way. We're so hard on ourselves, especially when we, rise in the upper echelon of business or success. We feel like we can't experience mental health challenges, and we almost hold ourselves in contempt. But I can tell you, if the person you love the most in the world came to you with the same problem, you would give them the most compassion and empathy that you have. We have to do that with ourselves, and it was learning to love myself and be empathetic, and allowing myself to go through those peaks and valleys and those down days, knowing it's okay. And you master that self-talk, you master your inner thoughts, because the mind is a steel trap, but the mind has anywhere between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And if they're not if they're not positive, best believe you're going to be in for a world of hurt. So it's really just finding that shred of mindfulness where you're just here, right? Because we know past caters to depression, future caters to anxiety. But right here, right now, if you are fully present, you're not giving energy to those, other aspects of your life. And hard thing to do, and it gets very, overly stated in this day and age, mindfulness, be in the moment. But in reality, that's where you want to be, and it takes a fighting effort to get there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's digging, like you said, like having people that help you dig rather than just, cover it with a carpet and pretend the hole's not there. Right. So, and one of the things that, that I've always thought about when it came to critical incidences too, is that like, okay, so one, we can put a lot of tools in place and we can offer a lot of support for the individuals that actually have went through it. But then there's, what about everybody at work that now you want to come back and reintegrate with that workforce? Have they been prepared to not be the cheerleaders of putting a carpet over the hole, but to actually help you with your journey as you go through there? And then the same thing with your families, right? Like what kind of systems can we put in place to say, hey, by the way, James or Gus or Eric is coming back home, not the same person. These are the things that we got to put in place at home to help not only with our recovery, but the entire family. Because we talk about life-changing incidences or fatalities and how it impacts the individual, but it ripples through the entire community, right? So I was always interested into that as well, as to what are the tools that we put in place for the support system so we can kind of transform the support system, not only for the individual, but for the outer rings, if you want to call it, of the impact of the incident.
Like I'd imagine after hearing you say that, Gus, like my default reaction would want to be to jump in there and help. And it would probably actually throw fuel in the fire, to use James's words, but you want to hug and take care of the person and facilitate it, and trying to ease them from that pain that you sense or you feel that they would be experiencing. So I'd be interested to know, to your point, Gus, what did that look like, or is that something you've experienced? And how do you train yourself or people around you? How do they seek help to be able to support in a productive way?
Really, the way I see establishing, that kind of support system is you need a start point. And a lot of organizations overlook this. When you talk about the outer workings of the organization, not just the critical incidents, not just the people that are, really in that deep, dark state, but everyone's going through something in our workplace, in life. And the last 2 years have been harder on humanity than it's ever been. So to have someone with, some lived experience of mental health, but that are healed. And I can't understate that enough, that are healed, that don't carry around that animosity. Because, for instance, I had a very difficult time with WSIB. They mishandled my claim in a lot of ways. And if I was working with someone who I was trying to help that was going through WSIB and going through that struggle, if all I did was, put them down and talk about how awful the organization is, then I'm just bringing that number down, right? It's a lot of people get concerned that, compassion fatigue, that, talking to these people and taking in their trauma essentially day after day, is it going to bring me down? And my answer to that is, I'm not trying to dance down in the dark with them. I'm trying to lift them up to my light. And that has to be the mentality of a support system, is I'm trying to lift you up. Even if it's for a short period of time, I want you to get your head in the clouds a little bit and just breathe and get out of that hard place that you live in day after day, and just give them some hope. And if you have a start point that's, people are comfortable with, and you have that credibility, people will come. That was one of my biggest worries when I started this role, is, will people utilize me? Will people come and talk to me for support? And I can tell you from day one, it's been nonstop. People just need to talk, they need to vent, they need to cry, and they just need some good perspective of someone who's been through it. And if you have something like that in your organization, a staple point, then you've won that first battle, so to speak. And then that's when you can start implementing different aspects in terms of referrals, in terms of debriefings, in terms of peer support teams. There's so many aspects you can implement that'll help our members.
Right on. So from that perspective, James, if being an employer today, I want to be proactive, right? I want to put things in place. I know for us, we've been doing things internally to make sure that people have a day's work where it's very fulfilling, and help them have a positive energy every day. But in the event that something occurs, what would you recommend an organization have in place beyond the standard, EAP program? what would you recommend you would have in place to say, okay, this has occurred, you're on top of it, you're handling it from a business impact standpoint. Here's, in a nutshell, the toolkit that you should put in place from the personal impact standpoint to help individuals along with their families and surrounding communities. Like, is there a perfect kit that we can put in place for that? Or
not a perfect kit, but you can put a kit together, because I've learned that you can have all the resources in the world, but if someone is not utilizing it, if someone's not healing, it's not from a lack of resources, it's from their own lack of resourcefulness. And when you look at critical incidents, debriefings, I know there's mixed reviews on debriefings, whether it perpetuates trauma or helps it. We have a debriefing team of 8 that I run. And after critical incidents, like I said, we sit down, we talk about it, but not the operational aspect of what went right, what went wrong, but the emotional aspect. How do you feel about this? What's going through your mind? How are you sleeping? And just getting a group of people together with a similar experience and sharing their own thoughts and feelings and emotions towards it, it's liberating and it heals people. Outside of that, you look at just peer support in general. After a critical incident, it doesn't have to be that formal, round circle debriefing. It's when we have, just some calls that could qualify as critical, but maybe there's just 1 or 2 people on it. Then I'm reaching out to them, seeing how they're doing, seeing if they need anything, seeing if they're suffering from any symptomology. And is therapy on the table? Is time off on the table? You got to put in a work injury claim. You need someone to help you guide that process. So it's just having those in place that it's normal. People know if I go through something, this is my start point. Because when people go through critical incidents and trauma, it's overwhelming. Where do I start? Even you look at therapy, there's so many therapists. And if you've never been in therapy and don't understand the process, my God, where do you start? And God forbid if you start with a therapist and they're not the right one for you, then you almost feel like you have to break up like you would in a relationship. It's difficult, and people will stay with them longer than they should. But it's like I said, I reiterate, it's that start point is crucial, because that's the biggest and hardest step to take, is just that first step. But you take that first step and then you realize, okay, I'm taken care of, I'm supported. And if I have any issues, I have someone as a soundboard, then they feel safe and they can start opening up and taking those steps towards healing.
is there anything else you want to add, Eric, to the conversation? I know we're always cognizant of our time for the audience.
No, I mean, if anything, James, really want to thank you for taking the time to share the context and your journey with us. And I've absolutely learned a lot, and it was a pleasure to get to talk to you today. Yeah, I've got shivers, and it's just quite powerful. So, and it takes definitely takes some things away from today. I don't have anything to add, but I really want to thank you for your time and your service and your dedication to others and helping them. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Right on. Well, there you are. Again, great conversation, and it's hard to articulate at the end of a conversation that's so deep as this. I mean, it does impact a lot of people when things occur. So if there's one thing that I've taken away from this is, just somewhat being prepared in the event that something occurs is probably the first step to take. So we would probably encourage everyone to take a look at what they're doing in their workplaces to support the workforce, so that not only we can go through things, but also to have a safe reintroduction and just create that safe atmosphere for people to thrive in and to keep going, right? Just keep going. And well, thanks again, James, for joining us, and Eric. And for everybody following along, please leave your comments below. Again, share the links as much as you want and like. And we're looking forward to seeing you with our next episode. And have a great day.